Welcome to the webinar on how to organize and secure an effective and, above all, secure remote workplace for both the end user and the administrator. Today's meeting will focus on the network administrator's role and the tools that may help them secure all remote work. Let's start with looking at what the network administrator does. We often meet with the opinion that if everything works correctly on your network, you probably don't really need an administrator. On the other hand, if there's a problem on the network, the administrator is the responsible person. In your daily work as an administrator, you're faced with a number of challenges. But above all, you have to ensure business continuity of both the equipment and the business services. For example, by monitoring the status of equipment. You're also responsible when a data loss or leak occurs. It is often the administrator who expresses an opinion on various types of solutions, which should prevent such problems. In your daily work, you prevent computers from being infected with malicious software by the users themselves, whether intentionally or not, and the use of removable external devices. You are also responsible for recording external data storage media and assigning different access levels to such media. It is also common for administrators to be requested by department managers to block, for example, the applications that can be considered as distractors. You're asked how computers are used by their users and what their work history looks like. You are also responsible for various purchases of both hardware and software licenses. One of your main tasks is therefore to optimize the costs of running the company in terms of hardware and software. As you can see from the challenges we have listed, the spectrum of the administrator's activities is very broad. You handle a very large number of areas that need to be secured so that the company can operate efficiently and at the same time remain protected from various threats that await both inside and outside the company network. Let's look at how remote work is possible under the present conditions. There are several ways it can be performed, but we will focus on the two most popular ones. The first way refers to the situation in which users use computers outside the corporate network. These may be company-owned machines, such as laptops that are lent to employees or private employee equipment, and connect to the corporate network to have access to resources, for example, through VPN or commercial solutions that allow for remote access to other computers. The other way is to use a computer, an intermediary host, which transfers data over the Internet to the corporate network and accesses corporate data over the Internet. No matter which way you choose to work remotely, it is important to secure access because the policy under which employees can use their personal devices to perform their jobs is being increasingly used. It is important that this connection is secured and encrypted. To this end, you can use a VPN connection or an application that uses the Internet and operates on dedicated ports through redirections. Whatever solution you choose, it is important that you secure the connection. If you use third-party software, you must remember to upload the appropriate certificates and enable the encryption options that might be disabled by default. One such solution is Axence Envision, which allows users to work on machines with the agent installed. For the agent to be able to transmit data and collect user activity information, it is necessary to configure the network equipment accordingly. The agent can transmit data over the Internet because its connection is encrypted with TLS. The availability of the communication port must be configured for this to work. The agent also uses TCP port 4436 for this purpose. The computers are managed by the Envision console, which can be used by the administrators. The console also uses the same communications port. When you select this type of solution, you do not need to purchase extra VPN tunnel licenses. They are not required because the user works on a corporate computer on which the agent is installed. This computer connects to the edge router through the network, and the edge router redirects the connection to a server that collects data. Thus, it gives you real-time control over the business equipment. And what if the company is unable to provide each employee with remote work equipment? When employees are unable to work in the office or want to work remotely, you can get a third-party solution. You can use remote work solutions, i.e. solutions that work for remote access to computers. But also in Envision, starting from version 11.6, we have introduced a feature that allows the use of the agent to enable the end user to use his or her private equipment at home to connect to the corporate equipment in the office. This will allow you to reduce the cost of additional licenses, e.g. for TeamViewer. In this case, the user uses their home computer as a kind of terminal, but they actually work on the machine with the agent that has remained in the company office. With the implementation of the remote work mode, some areas appear in the company which must be secured by the administrator. Such an area is primarily the need to ensure the security of both data and users. There is no doubt about this. If you want the employees to work remotely, you have to ensure their security. What is important from a business point of view is also the question of work accountability. Managers want to make sure that if a user works from home, they really focus on their professional duties and not use this time as additional paid leave, for example, to catch up on their housework. It is also important to ensure that users may get in contact with IT administrators and the team in event of a failure or to solve problems that may occur. One of these areas is also the remote support so that the administrator can effectively, e.g. remotely, connect with the user and help them solve a problem without having to physically access the computer. Another area is the need to prevent downtimes. To be able to work remotely, the administrator must also be sure that if something is beginning to happen on the network, they will be actively informed of it before a failure occurs. For example, they will be notified of having exceeded the safe limits or parameters of the equipment being monitored. We have just mentioned the areas on which the network administrator has a significant impact and may secure them with the appropriate tools if the company switches to remote work mode. Unfortunately, there are also issues beyond their control. They include, but are not limited to, the security of a private access point, i.e. whether the router at the employee's home is properly secured, the Wi-Fi network is password protected, and the router has the latest security updates installed. The administrator also has no impact on the technicalities themselves, for example, the link bandwidth. Therefore, it is very important that the administrator has the ability to secure the remote work of the users by setting up the appropriate encrypted communication links. As I mentioned before, the first area is data and user security. During this presentation, I will be using real-life examples of utilizing our Axence InVision software. Security of user data is a key issue. I will quote a few statistics that are very evocative. Research carried out on the market estimates that 12 new devices are attacked by malware every 12 seconds, and the number of devices is increasing. Practically each of us has a computer, a smartphone, perhaps a tablet, or any other mobile device that is used for work. It is important that the equipment used by the company is recorded by the administrators to ensure that security updates are installed as the company equipment is more and more frequently infected using different types of vulnerabilities. Other research shows that also a relatively high percentage of data leaks, almost a third of them, is often caused by the unauthorized and unwitting actions of employees. So this loss of data does not necessarily have to be the deliberate action of a user. Maybe the user unknowingly started a program and it infected their computer. A very large proportion, i.e. 69% of employees in SMEs, would not acknowledge their responsibility if their actions led to cyber attacks. In various surveys, users very often indicate misconfigured security policies, and the negligence of the administrator is the reason for not acknowledging their responsibility. A similar number, 64% of employees, say that their organization has a policy on using external data storage, e.g. flash drives, in place, but they deliberately ignore it because nothing will happen in this particular case, and it is more convenient for the employee to use their private flash drive. Unfortunately, users are not often aware that data on such a flash drive may be lost, not necessarily through their fault. Someone may steal their wallet in which the flash drive was kept, and, unfortunately, they no longer have any influence on what happens with this data. The same percentage of companies that filled in the cybersecurity questionnaires identify the human factor as the greatest challenge in ensuring the level of security they expect. Here, I will also quote data that is very insightful. In 77% of cases, data loss or theft had far-reaching serious consequences, a relatively high percentage because 15% of lost data can never be recovered. And 93% of almost all companies that lost data for more than 10 days went bankrupt within a year. How can you improve data and user security? For instance, by monitoring what storage media are used by employees and what operations are made on them, verifying whether users transfer corporate data to the media, and whether the media are encrypted. You can implement a policy under which you will assign permissions to the media that is authorized. And they are authorized because, for example, they have been purchased by the company. The company is certain that these media are encrypted, so even if such a flash drive is lost, you are confident that no unauthorized person will be able to access the data. Here, you can also assign different levels of access permissions to data. For example, you can grant users read-only access to files that are on such an external flash drive so that the user can save nothing on it or run no program files that are stored on it. What is more, in the Data Guard module, which is designed for managing devices, you can block printers. If a user uses their private printer at home, which is connected to the business computer, you are not sure whether, if they accidentally print out any sensitive documents, they will destroy them. If they are in the office, they can use a shredder. If they are at home, you are not sure if they have such a shredder at all. By managing external devices, you can also block devices that allow documents to be printed. With regard to security of user data, you can also block programs that are not authorized for use by employees, for example, in a specific department. For instance, you can block software that allows for remote connection to another station so that, for example, the user cannot share their desktop with others. Moreover, even if the user changes the name of the application that they want to run, these locks will still be active because they check what the original name of the file being run was. If it is in the blockades list, the execution of this application will be prevented. Users often try to download various types of files from the internet, such as software installers, by themselves. The user states that it would be faster to install the application by themselves than rather ask the IT department to do so, and they install, for example, a PDF document viewer. Unfortunately, it may turn out that the installer was infected and the computer is encrypted by the ransomware attack. So the important area here is to protect and disable the ability to download any files with any extensions for any users. The IT administrator is responsible for the content of company equipment. The administrators are responsible for maintaining computers, preparing applications, etc. So at least for licensing reasons, they should know what applications are installed on the computers. It is a good idea to prevent users from installing applications because it may often happen that such a user downloads an application for which you do not have a license, and you will only learn about it during an audit, which may lead to negative consequences. The file block feature can inform users that the action will not be executed. In this case, you may create your own messages, for example, who the user should contact if they find that the file is necessary for them to work. Another area is the question of accessing websites themselves. Of course, in addition to blocking access to certain websites that may be distractors, you can also block websites that are potentially hazardous. For example, social networking sites, which are increasingly being used as an attack vector. It happens when someone takes over the account of a specific person and impersonates a friend to send an infected file, as they know for which company the other interlocutor is working. The other person downloads the file in good faith because it was sent by their friend, opens it, and finds the file was infected and the computer may be encrypted. Here, I would like to draw particular attention of the financial and accounting personnel because they work a lot with financial systems. For these positions, if a computer is infected, for example with software that changes bank account numbers, downloading such an infected attachment may have far-reaching consequences leading to the loss of funds. Another area is the accountability of work, which is particularly important in terms of business. Managers who want to monitor the use of applications and websites within their teams are particularly interested in this data. Research shows that employees spend, on average, 90 minutes per week on tasks that are not related to their duties. Interestingly, when an employee knows that their activity is monitored, they spend more time performing professional duties. The accountability of work is also a history of user activities. If an employee, for example, was to prepare a report, but they did not meet the deadline, you can verify whether they were actually working on this task or maybe spent time on applications marked as distractors, e.g. watching videos, browsing social media, shopping online. The accountability of work is also a history of editing files. This is a complete history of user activity. You can see who edited a file recently or who deleted data from it. You know which of the employees made changes to the critical files that may include, for example, various financial statements. The accountability of work is also a history of printing. Because if you do not have the possibility to block printing, and the user needs to print documents at home, you get here a history of which documents were printed. You can also request that the user confirms that the documents printed have not been disposed of in just any waste bin and have been properly destroyed once they were no longer necessary. The accountability of work in this area also allows IT departments to be relieved thanks to a variety of tools that enable managers to see the specific user activity by themselves, whether the user is productive or maybe he or she spends a lot of time on websites or in applications that are marked as unproductive. Also, the end user concerned does not have to ask the administrator to prepare a report on their activity, but can see what it looks like by themselves. They can see which areas need to be enhanced, which activities should be abandoned to increase their productivity at work, and ensure that no one has any doubts about their activity. Of course, in solutions like this, you can also set healthy limits, such as the minimum productivity threshold, the daily threshold, or the maximum amount of time that a user can spend in applications marked as unproductive. And only if these daily limits are not met, the system can alert, for example, by sending an email not only to the administrators themselves, but also to the managers of specified department teams. Another area is also enabling quick and efficient contact with the technical support department so that the administrators can help users without having to physically access their equipment. Here, another research shows that a very high percentage, almost 3/4 of company representatives, are unaware of or uncertain about the cost of a single IT incident. Problem solving is not only the cost of replacing a hard disk, but also the cost related to the time which the administrator needs to deal with the event. After all, during the time when they're repairing an employee's computer, they could be enhancing infrastructure security, for example, by implementing new security policies. Remote management also allows restarting services that may have crashed in order to increase availability and reduce the time needed to resolve the problem. For example, when users report a problem with printers that are connected to the print server, the administrator can restart the service either manually or by configuring an action to be triggered automatically when a problem with the print spooler service has been detected. Then, the percentage of reported problems will be minimized as much as possible. In remote support, you also have the ability to manage processes. In the case of a heavy load on a computer, you can see why the user's computer or application crashes. Without the need for remote access to the workstation, you can disable, restart, or run a process, even during a session with the specific user's rights. Remote management also provides a very important feature that enables running the computer management command remotely, for example in the local Windows command line console. You can also run a command remotely on machines which have the appropriate agent software installed. What is important, you can also select here more computers to simultaneously execute the same command on them. For example, when you've made changes to GPO policies in the Active Directory. When you want to enforce using new policies on computers, you do not have to call the user or request a restart. You can select a group of computers and run commands remotely. For example, GP update with the force switch, which will enforce the download and application of the new computer management policies you have introduced. What is also very important, if you are going to restart a computer, computers, or servers, for example a file server, you need to be able to effectively notify users of this action. For example, you can send aggressive messages that will appear as pop-ups to the user. The user can confirm that they have read the message. This allows the administrator to know on which computers the users already know that the server will be restarted and what percentage of employees still need to be informed. If the administrator is sure that 100% of employees know, they can easily restart the server, for example, to install security updates. But what would remote management be if we were not able to see on the user screen what exactly the problem is? In remote management and remote support, you can use the tools built into InVision that allow you to connect to any computer and take control of the machine. You can block the user's mouse or keyboard for this time and solve the problem in front of their eyes without having to physically access the computer. In remote support, it is also very important to enable users to create trouble tickets in a structured manner via clear and simple access channels, such as a dedicated multifunction help desk interface. An employee will be able to use a very simple form to report a problem by selecting a category, specifying a subject, and possibly adding an attachment, such as a screenshot of an error message. The administrator himself has the ability to build an entire tree of problem categories. These categories can be grouped appropriately, and then using the automatic assignment to trouble tickets function, automatically send tickets from a specific category to a specific administrator who is responsible for troubleshooting problems related to a specific area of IT systems. Furthermore, if any of the administrators is absent, you can configure the so-called absence plans when you appoint a substitute who, in the absence of a colleague, will take over his or her tickets. Such a substitute will help resolve user problems so that the employees do not have to wait for the administrator responsible for the given area to return from leave. In Help Desk, you also have the ability to create more extensive automations that will take certain actions on tickets which meet specified conditions. For example, an employee creates a ticket in the Accesses category and requests access to a new area of the IT system to which he or she has not previously had access, and the system can automatically add the person who is the employee's supervisor and has the ability to accept or reject this ticket to the list of observers for this ticket. What is more, in Help Desk, you can create articles in the knowledge base so that users can read simple guides and instructions before they report a problem to the administrator. They will learn there how to solve common recurring problems that may occur during their work. For example, what to do when paper jams in the printer, or whom to inform when the toner of a specific color runs out. In the knowledge base, you can also create articles that will form a sort of a bulletin board, e.g., a collection of all documents, rules, laws, where employees can log in and view information gathered in one place. Another area is the automated downtime prevention. The number of network services has increased by as much as 75% over the last 4 years. The forecasts predict a further increase of around 15% per year. Each of us knows how dynamically IT is changing. A few years ago, group work and file-sharing solutions were rarely used, but now virtually every company has at least a solution from Microsoft, Teams, SharePoint, or OneDrive. We are using more and more network services in our work. It is important that administrators have the ability to respond quickly to downtimes that may occur in the infrastructure. A very high percentage, that is, over 75% of IT management teams said in research that they used more than 4 solutions from the area of network equipment management or monitoring for this purpose. By introducing multi-solutions that allow us to monitor the infrastructure and manage the services and equipment status, we can reduce the risk of failure. Research estimates that the implementation of this type of solution reduces the percentage of failures that occur on the network by 65% through proactive monitoring and notifying administrators. Administrators can be notified of potential downtimes and exceeding tested parameters of network equipment, including the critical devices which, for example, control production lines, and whose shutdown would result in very high financial losses. These notifications can be made either via conventional emails or mobile devices, for example, using instant messengers and push notifications or by sending SMS messages. In this example, you can see the amount of free space on the disk, file server. You can see on the file server how much free space is available on a specific date and what the trend of disk usage looks like. If any of the monitored values exceeds the thresholds, you can configure the program to automatically notify the administrator, for example, by generating an alarm, and you can view all these alarms in a single summary view. For the selected alarm, you will see which event was affected and what actions were taken. Of course, for any of the alarms, more than one action which should be taken can be connected. The program can notify the administrator that there is a problem with the device. A message, for example, on a potential device failure was received, and at the same time, it tries to automatically resolve the problem, e.g., by restarting a specific service. The company's infrastructure during home office mode is even more dispersed and vulnerable to dangers. Therefore, it is worth getting acquainted with the possibilities of a new Envision feature, the Admin Center. Thanks to this, the administrator will be able to build an IT management and security center to get full visibility of events or incidents in the company's IT network. The administrator can not only monitor the company's security, see unusual employee behavior or recently connected devices, but also have a live view of the key IT parameters such as link overboard, processor load, help desk tickets, or alerts. The Admin Center's interface can be filled with a dashboard's widgets providing clear charts and tables that present metrics one cares about most. It can be displayed on TV screens or monitors to observe key parameters on an ongoing basis. All gathered data are shown in one place and refreshed every 60 seconds. We have already reached the end of the presentation focused on securing remote work from an administrator's perspective. In this demanding time, more and more companies are switching to the remote work mode. As you can see, the administrator has a very wide area to protect. They have to meet a wide range of different requirements in both technical and business terms. There are solutions in the market that enable a very large number of IT monitoring and management functions to be consolidated into a single tool. One such solution is our Axence Envision, the capabilities of which I described earlier during this presentation. The fully functional version of the software can be downloaded from Axence.net. It is neither time nor feature limited, and it can be used for everyday commercial work. I encourage those of you who have not used Envision to download and test the program. Axence has been providing professional solutions for the comprehensive management of IT infrastructure for companies and institutions all over the world for more than 15 years. Our flagship product, Axence Envision, responds to the key needs of IT administrators and security officers in the scope of network and user monitoring, hardware and software inventory, remote technical support, data protection against leakage, and analyzing productivity at work. It enables management to optimize the operating costs of any IT infrastructure regardless of its size. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. Thank you for our meeting today. Thank you for your attention, and have a nice day. Best regards.